something. Especially once you get ready for the spiritual stuff. Gosh, you'll feel so good. Um, and we can talk about where to go with that later. But I wanted to get you started at least. Oh, but did have a point I wanted to make here, and that is that as you go through the history of jazz, starting about being about making inspiring body movement and dancing through like swing music. That's not necessarily the start, but that's a early and predominant concept is the swing, and then you go up to the real artistry focused bebop. Then you've got sort of your merging of those two concepts, the pinnacle for a lot of people, the hard bop era, but then and you get an increase in improvisation, and there is mind-body connection or mark presence in hard bop improv certainly, but then when you get to the avant-garde and the free, where the rules melt away and the concept isn't about the traditional science behind what tones sound good together and what emotion can I create with those tones, but what am I feeling in my body, and how do I express it by any means necessary. That mind-body connection in the avant-garde jazz, free jazz, spiritual jazz movement in particular, but lots of different experimental music, very good for trauma processing, as is music with a good beat, lots of bass where you can feel the vibrations in your body. And try dancing to Meditations or John Coltrane's Ascension while thinking about how you felt about a difficult time in your life. And don't think about how your movements look or whether they're coordinated to each other or the music, but just be instinctual about moving and in your emotions. Tell me how it feels. And then we can talk about trauma processing further. And then there's abstract expressionism, which for me was sort of the large inspiration for my painting, which is not just about mind-body processing, but about communicating emotion and concept, both, or some both, some one or the other, I suppose, most both. This is where I go to my abstract expressionist notes. So, if you look in the background, you can see the big one back there. That sort of gives away one of my biggest influences, Clifford Still. You can see the large areas of color, the different textures. There's some Rothkoist layering, and then you've got the lifeline about synthesis of two different concepts. More, I think now, less of a synthesis of two ideas, but a harmony of a variety of things. But that's an early painting, early-ish. So you've got Clifford Still. I want to say I left out last night recent. I don't know. I can't find much information about her online. Jean Banis. She talks about painting with her, sort of understanding of emotion, and I get that she sort of implies that she's had that because she's in her 90s, and so she's had a long time to do it. And I think I have a good understanding of emotion too, so I get related to her talking about that. Then you've got like Elaine de Kooning, Willem de Kooning, Richard Diebenkorn, Helen Frankenthaler, Joan Mitchell, Lee Krasner, Mark Rothko, Franz Klein, Cy Twombly, who is still in the news with his celebrity baby. And then and then you've got your two schools, sort of those are ones that people I like, and it's influenced me. But you've got your two schools, your color block and your action painting. And your color block is self-explanatory, and your action painting is like the color block is like Mark Rothko, for example. And then your action painting is like Jackson Pollock, where he's physically dripping the paint, and it's like a dance or a performance, the painting. And so, my one of my approaches has been to kind of combine those two, so that you say, is this an action painting or a color block painting, or can I not tell? And I hope in some ways that a lot of them are both. And I thought this week, that approach makes a lot of sense when your thing is mind-body connection, and one of the styles is more cerebral, and one of the styles is more body-based, and then you've got your mark. Ooh. Anyway. So I've thought a lot about trauma processing. Your free and spiritual jazz inspired me to think about collective trauma, and then there's one other influence here that we need to talk about, and that is cave painting or rock art. And two things here I want to talk about. One is the research of Genevieve Petzinger, who looks at geometric symbols that are common basically around the world in caves, different simple, not letters, not pictures, geometric abstract symbols. A writing of some kind, not a language, doesn't seem, but a writing, I would say, some sort of writing, even if not a complete system. And then that leads to the concept that then ties into things you read about. Well, you read about trauma being passed at conception genetically. You read about the cave painting being the first mark, attunement exercise, and that they call it mind-body connection because it's the creativity and the physical act and the cognitive process to create the image. That spurred sort of this monumental advance in sophistication of human cognition. That's an important concept, which is what we're going to talk about next. And that is trauma responses, collective trauma, and advancing human cognition. So remember, and maybe we didn't talk about this yet, but so allism to me is designed for efficiency and speed, so that you can avoid danger and avoid conflict with your fellow humanity in line with the code book, and do it quickly and on a broad scale that applies to everyone, the same kind of. And to me, it seems like you see experience enough of your family members be eaten by animals and die falling off of cliffs or whatever, starving to death because you can't find enough pine cones or berries or whatever. It's probably really hard. I'm imagining it being difficult to survive for tens and tens of thousands of years of humanity's existence. And I'm thinking about what we know about how hard it is to live with air conditioning and cars and bear spray. And I think about trauma and collective trauma and trauma responses. And it seems like a trauma response that is built around the speed by which you can correctly access, most of the time, your fight, flight, freeze, fawn response. I think allism is a collective trauma response. And I don't know why some people have it and some people don't, and that has continued. But over the history of tens of thousands of years of traumatic existence on Earth, that makes some sense to me. I don't have a scientific study to point to prove it, and I don't know how to create one. I'm not a scientist. Perhaps that can be part of what we're doing here, is combine some different types of epistemology together and create something new. Part of it, maybe. Can anyone figure out a way to prove autism is a trauma response? That'd be cool.